Okay, now I think we are 56, 65, or still people are joining, but I think we should start now. Okay, so as you all know, I am Nitesh Kumar Port, a PhD research scholar and Prime Minister's Research Fellow at IIT Hyderabad. So I'll be your TA for this course, that is your animal physiology. And what is the purpose of this course is basically we are going to explore about the concepts based on which you guys are having your assignment papers. Okay, so here we are going to discuss your assignments. Apart from this, any doubt that you got from your previous week's assignment or theory, whatever, apart from this also you can ask. There is no issue with that. If time permits, I will definitely eager to address your questions. So we can discuss all those things regarding your physiology aspects. Okay, so you guys can put your questions on the chat box, which we are going to discuss later on. But initially I'm going to discuss with you the assignments of week 1. Okay, so this is just introduction of me, that I am Nitesh Kumar Port, a PhD research scholar at IIT Hyderabad, and I have enrolled to your course, that is your animal physiology, and we are going to discuss on various aspects of your questions. Okay, so as you guys are all have done these things, right, that what refers to the relatively stable state inside the body of an animal. Okay, this was your first question, that what is the concept that we called basically to maintain the relatively stable state inside body of the organism. You guys can answer in the chat box. I would just like to see a few answers. Yeah, true. Agnita Dikshit, you are right. So here the first question, as you can see, what refers to the relatively stable state inside the body of an animal. Okay, so now we are going to discuss what basically homeostasis is. Okay, so homeostasis is basically a balance. Okay, so this basically maintain the balance of different system within the body of an organism. Okay, so when this balance get affected, whether it increase, whether it decrease, then this is getting sensed by the receptors. Okay, once that thing gets sensed by the receptor, that is further processed to the control center. Now control center is basically the hypothalamus of our brain or our nervous system, that basically observe, or that basically getting reported with the abnormalities within the body system. Now once the control system get aware about the abnormalities or imbalance, there are effector system. Now what is the effector system? That this is mainly comprises of various nervous system that is ordered or that is regulated by this control center, and that further provide response to change that imbalance into again balance. Okay, so this imbalance can be in temperature, water level, humidity level, whatever. Suppose for example, let's take temperature into count. Okay, suppose the temperature gets increased. Now this has been sensed by the thermal receptor in our body, and that is again signalized to the hypothalamus, that is the control center in our brain. Now once that is sensed by the control center, that is further process to the effector nerve, that utilizes the signal in order to maintain that balance. So this is the process that is mainly responsible for the process of homeostasis. Okay. Now the second question is that animals that do not have internal body control of their body temperature are called what? Okay, so in order to address this question, we are going to discuss two categories of organisms. One is ectotherm and one is endotherm. Okay, now what are ectotherms? So ectotherms are the organism that change the temperature of their body with the temperature of the environment. Okay, so their body temperature is directly related with the environment. Okay, so whenever there is a changes in the temperature, suppose the environmental temperature is too high, then the organisms is going to get, you will find the body temperature of or temperature of these organisms to be in hotter side. Similarly, suppose there is a cold seasons in winter, we will find this organism's body temperature to be less. Okay, now what are endotherms? So endotherms are the category of group of organisms that maintain the homeostasis, as we discussed further previously. Okay, so these organisms are basically going to maintain their internal body temperature utilizing different mechanisms, body mechanism. For example, suppose this is summer season. Okay, there is hot outside in the environmental condition. Okay, still our body temperature is maintained at 37 degree by different process such as sweating. So when the external body temperature is high, our body produces sweat, our blood vessels get dilated, that increase the surface area, that increase the sweat, and that evaporation of sweat results in the decreasing of our body temperature. Okay, similarly, suppose there is a winter season, suppose this is winter season. Okay, so in the winter season we generally doesn't sweat. Why? Because in the winter season what happened, our blood, we need to restore the heat. Okay, so our body, what it does, it constricts the blood vessel, and that way it reduce the heat loss. Similarly, what another way it can do? Similarly, we need to generate some amount of heat. Okay, so how can we generate heat? So we generally sever. So due to muscle contraction, also we generate few amount of heat that is responsible for maintaining of body temperature. Okay. Now the next question is that the Arctic fox uses its what as extra insulation when it curls up to sleep in cold weather. Okay. Now this is your Arctic fox. You can see this organism. So this basically found in the cold area. Okay. Now it get insulate itself from this external cold temperature by using its floppy tail. So the answer will be your floppy tail. As you can see here, it basically sleeps in this way by insulating its entire body, calls up with its floppy tail. Okay. Now the next question is that the process of temperature control are centered in next of the advanced animal brain. Okay, so this is your hypothalamus. Okay, now see, in order to understand this, we are going to understand this mechanism. Okay, so see, let's consider the normal temperature, that is your 37 degree body temperature. Okay, so when the body temperature is normal, that is fine, but when it rises its body temperature, that is above 37 degree, it has been sensed by the receptor. Okay, now the receptor signalizes to the nervous system. So what it does, it dilates the blood vessels. Okay, it dilates so that it will increase the surface area, so the more amount of the sweat will be released to the outside, and the evaporation of this sweat will reduce the body temperature. Okay, so that we can feel some cold. Similarly, if the body, suppose the body temperature drops down to below normal level. Okay, so how we are going to compensate the amount of heat? So it generally constrict the blood vessels. Okay, first as a first line of process, what it does, it will constrict the blood vessels so that the amount of sweat release will be less or negligible, so that body heat will be conserved. primarily. Okay, apart from this, what it will do, if body temperature continues to drop, suppose the body temperature is getting, suppose the external temperature is getting more or less, like in -4 degree, -3, 2, 1, 0, in such conditions we need to compensate. Apart from compensating the heat loss, we also need to generate few heat. Okay, so in order to generate the amount of heat, what we do, what our muscle do, we sever. So due to the muscle contraction, what it will do, it will generate amount of heat. So this will rise the body temperature. Okay, and all the signalings are regulated by hypothalamus, and specifically the anterior hypothalamus that regulates the entire process. Okay, now the next question is that what is the process of maintaining salt and water balance across the membrane within the body system. So we are going to discuss basically the process of osmoregulation here. Okay, so see, this is an example of a freshwater fish. Okay, now here the external environment is your hypotonic, because that is pure water, there is less amount of minerals. However, the cell inside this fish had different granules, different organelles and all these things. So this is your hypertonic condition. Okay, so if it will drink more amount of water, what it will do, this cell would get hypotonic, more hypotonic. Okay, so in order to avoid that balance, so freshwater fish, what it does, it will drink less water, rather it will excrete diluted urine. So the diluted urine, so the urine is diluted, because see, in the external environment there is water, there is so many water is present, there is lots of water is present. So this organism does not need to retain much water inside its body, rather it needs to retain minerals inside its body that is engulfed by this water. That's why it excretes diluted urine, okay, and less mineral. In contrast to this, in salt water condition, suppose there are so many minerals, so in that case it will drink so much water, because it need to get it hydrated all the time, because in the external environment lots of salt water is there, but that is not drinkable, right, because the salt concentration is very high. So in that condition it will drink more, and it will also excrete less amount of water, because it need to maintain this osmolarity inside the body by maintaining the water condition. However, here in the external environment water is more in freshwater condition, so it need to maintain the minerals, but in saline water condition it need to maintain water. So the excretion of urine will be less diluted and more concentrated along with more salt in case of saline condition. Here we can see here we can see in human system how it works. So suppose in summer season we sweat more, we drink less water, so we drink more water, and also we sweat more. Okay, so when you are sweating more, it will get evaporated to the environment. Okay, in that condition the water content of the blood get low. Okay, so the water content is getting reduced. So in that condition our brain is going to produce ADH. Okay, ADH hormone, that is going to retain or reabsorb the volume of water into the kidney, so that the urine output will be very low and it is concentrated, because water level in the body is already less. However, if you drink so much water, now the water concentration is more, so that it will release less amount of ADH. Okay, so that low volume of water will be reabsorbed and the urine output will be high, that is more diluted urine. Okay, so when water concentration is less concentrated urine, high water concentration, more diluted urine. That we can also generally observe that in summer season if urinate frequently, sorry, we frequent rarely, we urinate rarely. However, in winter season we urinate quite frequently. Okay. Okay. So, what is the medical process? Removing waste and excess water from the blood by diffusion and ultrafiltration. Now, see, blood transfusion is the process of giving somebody blood, right, or exchange of blood. Blood thinning is the process of diluting the blood. However, nephritis is basically the swelling of nephrons. Now, what is dialysis, that we are going to mainly discuss on this slide. Okay. So, in dialysis, what we do, the venous blood, which is the impure one, is getting into a dialyzer. This is basically a filter. So, now this filter is going to filter out all the waste from this impure blood, and further the pure blood is again accommodated within the artery. Okay. So, this is nothing but only a purification of impure blood by the dialyzer. Okay. So, this is basically going to purify our blood, and this is basically in case of when kidney is damaged, or in case of kidney patient, what actually when the kidney is malfunction, in that condition this technique is mainly utilized in order to purify the impure blood, and again the purified blood is incorporated inside the patient. Apart from this, during this techniques, what we do, generally the person is going to have less amount of saline and all these systems. So, this system also includes to provide the patients with the saline, water and all these things to make it, keep it rehydrated all the time, right? Okay. So, now any homeostatic process that changes the direction of the stimulus is a what? Now keep it in mind that it changes the direction, okay, not in the same direction. So, in order to discuss this question, let me discuss about what is basically feedback. So, there are two type of feedback mechanism. One is positive feedback and one is negative feedback. Now, what positive feedback is that when a system needs to get enhanced, or when we need to get some productivity, when something is getting increased, in that condition this, or we need to increase, in that condition positive feedback is worked, positive feedback worked, so that the feedback mechanism is going to increase the output. However, negative feedback क्या होता है? Negative feedback is going to inhibiting system, okay, so that something is going on and we need to block that system at that particular point. So, that inhibitory system is regulated by the negative feedback. Now, just let me discuss by this half first, so that suppose this individual is with normal body temperature. Okay. Now, let us the body temperature is falling. See, the body temperature is now falling. So, this is the condition that the body temperature is falling, and we need to block, we need to inhibit that falling of body temperature. Okay. So, what generally happen? In order to remove that body temperature falling, the blood vessels get constricted. Okay, blood vessels get constricted, that sweat gland is not going to secrete more fluids, and the sweating will get decreased. However, we are going to sever in order to generate muscle contraction, and the muscle contraction is going to generate heat. And all these mechanisms, these are the mechanisms that are going to retain the amount of heat inside the body. Now the heat retention is going to inhibit the falling of body temperature. So, this is a negative feedback to prevail or to block the falling of body temperature. Similarly, if we see this half, now see, suppose the body temperature is rising. Now, the rising of body temperature is the process, and our purpose is to inhibiting the rising of body temperature. Okay. Now, in that condition, what happen? Our sweat glands is going to secrete more amount of sweat, so that the blood vessels is going to dilate. So, all these mechanisms are to release the amount of heat, evaporate into the atmosphere. The heat is going to evaporate, and we are going to feel the coldness. Again, we are going to return back to the normal body temperature. So this feedback is going to inhibit the rising of body temperature. So both the condition will be considered as negative feedback. Here it is inhibiting the falling of body temperature, however here it is inhibiting the rising of body temperature, right? Okay. Now the next question is that the heat can be exchanged between an animal and its environment by what? Okay, so the answer will be, as mentioned here, it will be radiations, evaporations, convection and conduction. Now let me explain what convection, what radiation and what evaporation is. So see, suppose this is an organism, okay. Now suppose it is accepting light from sun. Now the few amount of heat is going to directly radiate from the body itself, okay. When this organism is going to get heat from the sun, few amount of heat is going to directly radiate it to the environment, okay. That is going to that is by radiation. Now suppose we are evaporation, suppose we get some sweat into our body. Now this sweat is going to evaporate. Suppose in general summer as well, the body heat is going to evaporate to the environment when the external environment will be cold, okay. Now conduction is the transfer of heat when the two systems are in close contact, okay. Suppose this organism is contained with the soil. Now few amount of heat from the soil either will transfer to the body of this organism or from this body to the soil. This is basically happen when the organism is in close contact with the soil, and this process of heat transfer is called your conduction, okay. Now what is convection then? So convection is the process of transfer of heat from one media to another media, okay, when there is a difference in the temperature. Suppose suppose after gaining heat, this organism is hot and the surrounding air condition is cooler, okay. Okay, so similarly here you can see this diagram, that here you can see when it is in contact with the level. So this is basically conduction mode of heat transfer. Few amount of heat that it will get from the sun, it will get radiated, reflected out, reflected from the ground and again reflected out of the body. So this is what radiation. Apart from this, few amount of heat that get directly into that get shedded out directly into the atmosphere is basically by convection, okay, to the circulating air that is surrounds the body, that will directly cools, because the temperature of the air will be less than the body temperature, okay. So the heat will be directly released out into the external air. So this is basically by convection, and few amount of heat will get evaporated out from the body, okay. So the body water is also get evaporated, so heat is also get evaporated by various means. So these are the four modes of heat transfer that generally occurs between the organisms and environment, okay. So when bacteria are destroyed into the liquids are released into the blood, okay. So this basically pyrogens. So what are pyrogens basically then? Now suppose we got some infections, okay. Now it's not like that all the pathogens or all the bacteria are getting killed, okay. Suppose you get an infection and our primary immune system get increased or that get activated, okay. Now that system is going to, what they will do? They are going to act against the pathogens. Now few amount of the pathogens will get killed and they will release these chemicals called the pyrogens. Now these pyrogens will increase the body temperature and that will get sensed by the receptor that are present or thermal receptor that are present in the vicinity. Okay, now that is going to signalize your temperature regulator of the body, that is your hypothalamus. Okay, so that will signalize you the fever, and further immune functionality will take place. So that again further our various level of systems, like again primary, secondary and other systems, even antibody if it is required, will get generated inside the body in order to act against that pathogens. Okay, so this is basically the way that whenever the body is getting affected with any bacteria, that will get killed by the leukocytes and they will release the pyrogens, and this word itself, that is pyron, means heat generating particles. So these are the chemicals, or these are the proteins, these are the antigens that increases heat inside our body, that signalize that fever has been taken place, and this is what increase the immunity functionality of our immune system. And the last question is that which hormone is basically associated, or which disease is basically associated with the lack of production of insulin. So basically the answer will be the diabetes. You must aware of the diabetes mellitus, and this is basically this disease is basically occur in the associated with the increase in level of the glucose. So there are in the liver, what happens, there are two type of cell, one is alpha and one is beta. Okay, so this beta cell is going to secrete your insulin. Okay, and this alpha cell is going to secrete your glucagon. Okay, okay, so this insulin, when the blood insulin level is decreased, suppose here you can see in this figure 1, here you can see in this figure 1, there is no insulin. Okay, there is no insulin. So if there is no insulin, the blood glucose level will increase, and that will increase the blood glucose level, and that will results in the diabetes mellitus. Now we can see what will happen if the glucose level will increase. There are several biological aspects of glucose uptake, so that even you can see liver glycogenesis, glycogenolysis, sodium glucose transporter, all these mechanisms are associated with the glucose condition. Okay, so if the glucose condition is significantly increased, it is going to create abnormalities in our body system, that is going to basically create your diabetes mellitus. Okay, similarly, if the insulin is present in the system, so that is generally going to reduce them or maintain the blood glucose level, so that the person is not going to suffer from diabetes mellitus. Okay, so apart from this, increase in glucagon condition is also going to increase your glucose. However, this is going to maintained by the insulin. Okay, so more the insulin is going to reduce the glucose level, and the body's and the person is not going to have diabetes mellitus. Okay, so we can directly say that it is insulin that is directly associated with the disease that is called diabetes. Okay, so this is all about today's discussion that we were supposed to discuss on this class, and we'll see you further in the upcoming lectures. You can now we can discuss further, like whatever doubt you have, and now we are going to further see you on the next class, that is on next Friday, and we'll start from 6:50. Okay, okay, till then, take care, goodbye, and thank you so much for joining this.